Today's show is supported by Liberty Magic, Pittsburgh's premier speakeasy theater dedicated to the art of elevating magic. This time they are presenting David Williamson in Ridiculous, a family-friendly show where magic and comedy collide. David's signature magic is filled with jaw-dropping illusions and a very distinct sense of humor. Yes, he is a magician, but he's also been called a clown and even an anarchist. So get ready for a show with a lot of laughter. Ridiculous runs from April 2nd to May 3rd. Get your tickets at trustarts.org/magic before they disappear. This is CityCast Pittsburgh. I'm Megan Harris, and here's what Pittsburgh's talking about.
Producer Sophia Lowe here for a second. I am super excited for Kennywood, which is opening for the season in just a couple of weeks. So to celebrate, we're revisiting highlights from our conversation with local historian Mark Hauser. He sat down with host Megan Harris before Kennywood's 125th birthday to explain how a little picnic grove became the amusement park we know and love today.
I'm with historian and speaker Mark Hauser. Hey, Mark. Welcome back to CityCast Pittsburgh.
Hi, Megan. Thanks for having me.
The last time you were here, you told me that Pittsburgh's bluff about having the most bridges was BS. You're not going to ruin Kennywood or anything, are you?
No. I promise I won't ruin Kennywood.
Well, let's go back to those days. I want to be like Sophia and the Golden Girls. Picture it, Pittsburgh, 1898. What was going on at the time, and what was life like here?
Wow, what was it? A big year. 1898 is the year of the Spanish-American War. So Pittsburgh was, like the rest of the country, whipped up in a war frenzy. But also, the city had been changing pretty dramatically. Of course, there was so many factories along the riverfronts, not just steel, but glass, iron, aluminum, all the different industries, and all that coal being burned in those factories and in the homes too, and you've got the inclines climbing up and down.
Yeah, they were kind of routine, not just the Mon and the Duquesne, but we had a bunch of them back then.
Yeah, something like 11.
But not too many like recreational spots. Like we think of Pittsburgh as being so rich for that. Now, at the time, they were brand new, like Shenley, Riverview, Highland. None of them were very old at the time.
Right, exactly. There were one of the main places people would gather. Well, two of them were down at the Point. One was the Exposition Grounds. And, that's where there would be regular shows sort of displaying the latest in technology for people to come and marvel and wonder at. And then John Philip Sousa seemed to come by every year to direct a band. There was a music hall there. And then across the river, of course, was the Exposition Park, which is where the Pirates began playing. And they were already well established in the 1890s. But as you say, there were new parks coming. And one of the reasons is that it was so smoky and choky down there, downtown, that the director of public works for the city of Pittsburgh, Edward Bigelow, made it one of his main jobs to find and set up some parks in parts of Pittsburgh that were a little less surrounded by that pollution.
Yeah. And we were really at the beginning of what became an enormous population boom. I think at the time they were just over 300,000 people, which is oddly what we're at now. But that would double in the next 30 years. So I guess they were looking for, stuff for people to do when they weren't working these, industrial jobs.
Absolutely. And one thing you could do would be to have a picnic and walk around in air where it wouldn't make you cough to breathe.
I know. So take us back to Kenny's Grove.
Yes, Kenny's Grove was the name of a very popular picnic grounds up on the bluffs above the Monongahela River that was named for Thomas Kenny. So Tom Kenny was a guy who mined coal out of the hillside there and had, like a little operation that he could get coal down onto barges and supply all the factories that were making downtown Pittsburgh so intolerable with pollution. So that kind of benefited him too, that up on top of the bluff, he had a picnic ground and people could take a steamer up the river to Kenny's Landing, or they could take a train to Kenny Station along the riverside there. And so Kennywood, is also named for Thomas Kenny, of course.
I like that they kept it thematic. Why mess with success?
Indeed. So that had been going on for decades. And what changed things was the introduction of an electric trolley line that went through, or right past, rather, that picnic ground. And that was owned by Andrew Mellon.
Is a trolley different than a railway? because I don't know the difference. I should. I've lived here long enough.
Well, the difference generally is that trolleys are running instead of on coal or steam, they're running on electric power.
So we had that. So this is 125th birthday. This would be 1898. We had electric systems running
trolleys
that far outside the city.
And before then, we had cable cars, just like they have still in San Francisco.
Okay.
So that's how people got around within the city before there were automobiles, before there were buses. I mean, there were horses and carriages, horses pulled.
But that's a much longer trip if you're doing it that way. Well, and today the rail line connects like Homestead, Duquesne, Braddock, McKeesport. Is this like then, I guess, the genesis of all that?
Yeah, the Monongahela Street Railway.
Nice.
And Andrew Mellon bought that. And now his dad had owned a short line railway that connected Latrobe and Ligonier. And
in Westmoreland County.
And a common practice of the day was to put a park either at one end or the other or somewhere in the middle of a streetcar or a railroad line so that you would draw passengers beyond your typical commuters and people going to work at factories or what have you.
Yeah. Give them something to do.
Yeah, exactly. Bring people on the weekends when the traffic is down. So that's where Idlewild Park came from.
Oh. So it predates Kennywood.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So Andrew Mellon took a lesson from his dad. And when he bought this trolley line, he said, we should use all of this power we're generating to drive the cars back and forth on the track between McKeesport and Pittsburgh. And we can put an amusement park right there on Kenny's Grove and add some rides and put a carousel in. And that power will, also power the lights that light it up at night so people can come out and stroll in the evening and steal a kiss from their belle or their beau.
And I do not understand electrical grids, but if we needed electricity for the railway, is that how we got electricity then for the amusement park?
That's right. In the early days, when we had a less reliable power grid, just the fact that the street railway needed its own source of power, its generation to drive these cars between McKeesport and the city, that same power source could be used to light lights and turn a carousel. And
that's how we got a carousel?
Indeed. That was the first ride. The first year when Kennywood opened, it had a carousel. And it also had, a dance hall / kitchen, restaurant venue that they called a casino back then.
Oh, okay. Language evolves, I guess.
Right. It wasn't for gambling. I'm pretty sure there was no blackjack or slot machines in this casino. People used the word casino back then for a big building where people got together for parties and social events.
Today's episode is supported by Clearview Federal Credit Union. I actually just made a new bank account with Clearview, and the process was so easy. I set up an online appointment, and in just 30 minutes, everything got sorted. But banking can get confusing, and sometimes it's just easier to ask your questions in person. So I was really happy to hear that Clearview Federal Credit Union has new spots open, one in the Strip District and another downtown right by Market Square. They've got 23 financial centers all over the area, and you can pop into one to learn more about their 412 offer, where you can get $412 when you open their Absolute checking account and meet deposit requirements. Plus, you can tap into their free financial counseling services to meet all your financial goals. Learn more about Clearview at clearviewfcu.org/412.
Today's show is brought to you by City Theater and their production of Hedwig and the Angry Inch. This Tony Award-winning musical follows the life, loves, and heartbreaks of the legendary Hedwig, an East German rock and roll goddess. I have been meaning to see this musical forever. I know it's got a huge cult following, but the last time City Theater put on the show was in 2003. So I am very thrilled they're reviving it. It's exciting for people like me who get to check it out for the very first time, and all the so-called heads out there who will now get a chance to re-experience the show right here in Pittsburgh. Hedwig and the Angry Inch is running from May 12th to June 7th at the Greer Cabaret downtown, and it's being presented in partnership with the Pittsburgh Cultural Trust. You do not want to miss this beloved, fierce, and energetic show. Tickets available at citytheatercompany.org.
Today's show is brought to you by Window Nation. They're running their The More You Buy, The More You Save sale, where you could save up to 50% off on all the windows for your home and get 0% interest financing for 5 years. Pittsburgh's got some old homes, and if yours has windows that are broken or leak or are stuck shut, now is the time to consider an upgrade. I love cracking open my bedroom windows and napping when there is a light cross breeze, and you're also going to want to head into spring and summer with windows that are nice and easy to open. You can choose from over 1,500 styles and colors, and once your appointment is scheduled, Window Nation's team finishes the installation in just under 1 day. They also do their due diligence and measure 3 times to make sure your windows are the perfect fit. The windows are energy efficient and also come with a lifetime warranty. And hurry, the sale ends soon. Schedule a fast, free consultation now at windownation.com.
So what other rides did they have kind of at the beginning? I think we're in the neighborhood of like a Ferris wheel, but did we actually have one? And I think I read this somewhere, the Old Mill. Was that like an OG, like a true original, or do people just say that?
The Old Mill is the oldest still surviving ride.
Was it there at like when they, first opened up?
Not in 1898. I think it dates back to the teens, like 1914, something like that.
That's pretty original.
And so it was upgraded early in its existence to, it used to have a kind of a roller coaster log flume plunge on it.
Like what do they call those? Like a toboggan or something like that?
Right. And then it became Garfield.
Oh,
it's later history.
Oh, the Old Mill,
it's the same one. It's been through, so there's a hilarious YouTube video. I think the series is called Defunct Land that looks at
We've been trying to get Defunct Land to talk to us on the show for a solid year. If you have any hookups, let me know.
My kids showed me that one, and it's hilarious.
But everything that was built at that point, that would be all wood, right? Like, I get a headache just thinking about being on any of those rides.
Yes. Well, that's what makes them great, right? Wooden roller coasters. I mean, the tracks have...
Which, those came later.
Well, there were roller coasters early on, but they were these... roller coasters were kind of being invented back then in the late 1890s.
That far back, really?
Yeah. And the early ones, the chain had pulled it up a hill, but because it had to be safe and because people had lower expectations of how fast a roller coaster could go, you could probably outrun them.
Which ones are, because we still have a bunch of old wooden ones. It's what? Jackrabbit, Racer.
The Thunderbolt.
And Thunderbolt, that's it. Thunderbolt had a different name, though.
It did. It was called Pippin.
That was way before my time.
I don't know what it was after. I was going to say after the 60s musical or whatever.
Is it unique to still have so many wooden roller coasters of, that kind of like early era?
Yeah. In fact, Kennywood is one of only 2 amusement parks that are still functioning in the country that are also have a National Historic designation.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, a historic landmark. Kennywood was the second one, I think, to get that designation. The first one is in Rye, New York. It's called Playland. So Playland is a National Historic Landmark, and Kennywood is too. And that also kind of controls, it has some impact on how much the park can modernize. But I think...
Oh, I didn't even think of that.
But I think the historic nature of Kennywood, that's part of its charm.
Yeah,
its
totally.
In fact, the person that got its National Historic status was Carl Hughes, a former president. I've got a great roller coaster story, too, from that Carl Hughes guy. He's the guy behind the slogan, the roller coaster capital of the world.
Oh, okay.
Right? So Kennywood is the roller coaster capital of the world.
I don't think I've ever heard that before, but sure.
That was part of the theme song in the 80s when I was growing up and going to Kennywood, right?
I feel like Cedar Point's really taken that one over. Sorry,
no. Pittsburgh is we may not have more bridges than any other city, but we are still the roller coaster capital of the world.
Sure.
But anyway, Carl Hughes, the former president of Kennywood, told a great story. He's no longer with us, but he got the idea for roller coaster capital from the father of Art Rooney, the founder of the Steelers. Rooney's dad had a beer brewery, and the beers, I think it was General Braddock's Brewery, and it said premium beer on the bottle. And Carl asked Mr. Rooney, "How do you become a premium beer?" And Rooney said, "Tell your printer."
Yeah, that sounds right.
So that's how we are the roller coaster capital of the world, because we said so.
You know, talking about those old roller coasters, I love the note in your story for Pittsburgh Magazine with the Kennywood, the modern Kennywood GM saying that 10% of the boards on those roller coasters get changed every year. That is so much rebuilding.
Yeah, they do it in the wintertime. They have to put a tent around their workspace, right, to stay warm. But yeah, they I think they get pine wood and I think from Georgia and where else? I think he said Washington. But they supply, box cars of wood have to come in. They already every year assume that they'll have to replace about 10%, especially on the tight turns. That's where it doesn't last so long.
You get the wear and tear.
Yeah.
And that's such an interesting tightrope to walk, like being able to modernize and keep crowds interested, but also preserve all of these old spaces that people are incredibly nostalgic about, but also mining safety and making sure that everyone is okay while they're there.
That's right.
Mark Hauser is a historian, writer, and speaker, and lucky for me, also a friend. More than 1,000 people have taken his antique skyscraper rooftop tours in Pittsburgh. You can sign up for the next tour at his website, antiqueskyscrapers.com, and we'll have a link in the show notes. Thank you again for doing this.
Thank you so much, Megan. It's always a pleasure.
That's all for today here on CityCast Pittsburgh. You can support us by becoming a CityCast Pittsburgh neighbor at membership.citycast.fm. And don't forget, you can support us and hang out with us by coming to our free 412 celebration at Southern Tier Brewing. It's on the North Shore and coming up this Sunday, April 12th, our zip code day. There's going to be a DJ, flash tattoos, vendors, and our special Nebby Neighbor beer. The whole team is going to be there. You don't want to miss it. RSVP at the link in our show notes. And we'll be back tomorrow morning with more from around the city. See you then.
I remember as a kid, literally, I remember going to Kennywood and riding on the Thunderbolt with my dad. The first time I ever rode a roller coaster. I must have been 8 years old or something.
Nice.
And it was thrilling. I think we waited in line to sit in the front. And, that was just that's a spectacular roller coaster, especially because you don't have to go up a hill first. You just plunge straight into the ravine. But I remember very well that after that, I wanted to go on the Spider. That looks exciting. Let's go, Dad. And this same guy who had seemed very brave moments ago looked at me and said, there's no way. I can't go on spin rides. And I couldn't make any sense of that. Oh, you could go fast in the roller coaster. Why can't we go on a spin ride?
It's different. It's just different now.
Cannot do it. I now have the same problem.